The Book of Boba Fett has finished its run on Disney+. It's a 7-episode show set in the Star Wars universe, which is kind of a spin-off of The Mandalorian, and realistically you could even go as far as calling it The Mandalorian Season 2.5. But it is also the story, or should be primarily the story of Boba Fett, historically one of the fan favorite characters from the original Star Wars movies. He first appeared all the way back in Empire Strikes Back and immediately became fascinating for fans for 3 reasons mainly. First, his armor just looked cool as shit. Second, he was shown to be an extremely competent bounty hunter, able to consistently outsmart the heroes. And thirdly, with as little as we knew about him, he was probably the only character, apart from the Emperor, who could talk back to Darth Vader and suffer no consequences. It was clear there was a level of mutual respect there, and since we didn't really know much about Boba Fett, people were wondering, who is this guy? Why is he behaving like this, and why is he getting away with it? We want to learn more about him. So then he appeared in a number of comic books and novels over the years, but we had to wait a long time before seeing more of him in live action, more than the short appearance in Return of the Jedi, and then his early childhood backstory in Attack of the Clones. He showed up in Season 2 of The Mandalorian as a supporting character, and now he gets his own show, which I have to say is pretty disappointing when all's said and done. And I'm saying this as someone who adored The Mandalorian. I think Boba Fett, in comparison especially, is very shaky, very uneven, and it has a core problem with its own sense of identity, I would say, but we'll get to that. The story picks up right after the 2nd season of The Mandalorian. Boba Fett and Fennec Shand arrive at Jabba's former palace and take over his former criminal empire. And from there on we have 2 storylines essentially happening in parallel. The first one, on one hand, the present day focuses on Boba's activities as the new wannabe boss on Tatooine, and then we have flashbacks which explain how he escaped the Sarlacc pit and what he was doing in the few years that passed between Return of the Jedi and The Mandalorian. Now, as I said, the show is wildly uneven. Some of the things I absolutely loved, some of the things I absolutely hated. Let's start with the good shit. I think the flashback storyline with Boba living among the Tuscans was pretty great. It heavily utilized the technique of show not tell, weaving its story with sparse dialogue and communicating mostly through visuals instead, which is something that other parts of the show were not as good at doing. I also think this was where Temuera Morrison shined the most as the lead star, because I don't know, I think he was able to really draw on his sort of stoic energy in these sections, especially as they didn't require as much dialogue. Plus, these sections also drew on the Maori culture that he represents a little bit. The ceremonial fighting sticks, the angry faces he makes during combat, that's all stuff from his real life. And it was all very cool. And these sections kind of felt like watching a documentary on a different culture, only set in Star Wars. Secondly, we finally get Cad Bane in live action and other beloved characters, this time around from the Clone Wars animated show. He steals the show whenever he shows up. He's really well made and well utilized, and the scenes with him are among the best parts of the show, particularly the Western-inspired standoffs with Boba and with Cobb Vanth. Just amazing stuff. And finally, episodes 5 and 6 are just excellent Star Wars content. I'm not gonna spoil everything that happens, but suddenly we pivot away from just Boba and his adventures and explore some other characters and the wider universe. It was amazing to watch those 2 episodes, but, and there is a significant but, and here's where the bad stuff begins. As much as episodes 5 and 6 are excellent, you have to wonder, why are they part of this particular show? I mean, sure, TV shows, movies in general usually have multiple storylines happening at the same time, but in this case it really goes to the extreme. For 2 episodes, this show literally becomes another TV show, with Boba not even appearing in episode 5 at all. I feel that that's one of the symptoms of the identity problems I mentioned earlier on. The show can't seem to decide whether it wants to be a Boba Fett show, or The Mandalorian, or even wider Star Wars Adventures type thing, or whatever. It feels weird to have all of this stuff happen here, particularly as certain reunion, which happens in the last episode, which I thought severely undermines the impact of The Mandalorian's second season finale, and in a way resets things to back to status quo, which I didn't like at all. And even within Boba Fett himself, the show struggles to find out what it wants to be. The flashback story ends pretty abruptly, as it's just getting interesting, and the present day storyline is it's just awful. Let's call it what it is. Boba lacks a clear motivation for why he would want to suddenly drop the bounty hunting life and suddenly settle on Tatooine and become a crime lord. I mean, it's kind of explained in the show, but I don't really buy it. I don't buy why he would want to do this particular thing, especially as he wants to become a crime lord, as he himself says, and even then he doesn't seem to actually know what being a crime lord is, and that it involves doing crime or doing anything at all. In fact, he mostly just seems to be walking from place to place, meeting people, saying in the same tone, "I am Boba Fett, I intend to rule with respect." Okay, bro, but what does that mean specifically? What are you going to do, and with whom? And this continues for a while until there's a big fight at the end, and that's kind of it. I never bought this characterization of Boba, and I think this is a problem that the Star Wars creatives kind of brought upon themselves, because what would really be interesting about this character is to see Boba go on a bounty hunting adventure across the galaxy, doing various missions for various people in his cool looking armor, but guess what? This exact thing has already been done by The Mandalorian, so they had to come up with something different, something completely else, and I feel they didn't do a good job at all. The show also suffers in execution, purely. A lot of the episodes feel very campy, very cheap and poorly made in terms of the fight choreography, the logistics, the costumes, makeup, even direction. Oftentimes you would have characters just standing in rooms talking at each other without any acting involved. The worst offender is probably Fennec Shand, who at times, and I mean this is the fault of the script and the direction, not the actress, she's at times just reading the script to us like an exposition machine, and this is horrible, and it's mostly evident in the episodes directed by Robert Rodriguez. The way he choreographs his fights, especially the finale, which is the worst episode of the entire show. I mean, the way he directs, or rather doesn't direct dialogue, the way he insists on using the colorful space Vespa gang, it's all rather embarrassing, especially when you get through the first 4 episodes, and then episode 5 hits, and that one is directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, and it just feels like day and night suddenly. The difference in quality is staggering. It feels like essentially a completely different and much better show. So I don't really know what happened, but I think Rodriguez managed to prove he's absolutely not a good fit for Star Wars. Overall then, to sum all of this up, I think there are individual things in here that are very interesting, but overall the show is rather disappointing due to its uneven quality and lack of identity or purpose. And the worst part for me is that fans of The Mandalorian can't even reasonably skip it, because the show decides to continue the storyline from that one, thus forcing you to suffer through quite a lot of mediocrity. It feels very bad to say this, but it's not good as a whole.